In this video, I want to have a look at something called the general form of a line. So we've been looking at equations of straight lines, but usually when we've seen them, they've been written in what's called gradient intercept form, which was y equals mx plus b. So for example, all of these expressions here are written in gradient intercept form, so they've got y as the subject of the equation. In this one, the gradient is 2, the y-intercept is 5. In this one, the gradient's a half, and the y-intercept is 1. And that's a really nice way of writing it because it's really useful for helping us graph straight lines when we can really easily read off the gradient and the y-intercept. But we can also write it in other ways as well, and the most common other form is what's called general form. So when we're writing something in general form, it's going to look like this. It's going to have ax plus by plus c equals 0. So all of the terms, everything is all on one side of the equal sign, and we're just left with 0 on the other side. Our a, b, and c, our coefficients and our constant term, they're all whole numbers, and a is always going to be positive. So we're always going to write the x term first, and we want it to be positive. So the reason we write it like this sometimes is just that occasionally, depending on the situation, it can be neater and it can be more convenient. So I want to have a look at a few examples of converting between general form and gradient intercept form. So these three questions here are all currently written in gradient intercept form, and we've been asked to rewrite them into general form. So if we have a look at question 1, we've got y equals 6x plus 2. Now to write this in general form, we want it all on one side of the equal sign. Now at the moment, our 6x, that's already positive. So if we were to move that to the other side, it'd become a minus 6x. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to move our y across to the right-hand side. So we're going to subtract y from both sides of that equation, and we'll end up with 0 equals 6x minus y, and we've still got that plus 2 on the end. And then usually we just rewrite it as 6x minus y plus 2 equals 0. So we've just flipped the whole thing over. All right, so that's question 1 done. If we have a look at question 2, we've got y equals minus 2 over 3x plus 2. Now there's two things here. One is that our x term is negative. So when we move it, we're going to move everything over to the left-hand side, so that becomes positive. But we've also got this fraction, and in general form, we don't want any fractions, so we're going to have to get rid of that. So I'm going to move everything across first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that 2/3 x. So I'm going to have y plus 2/3 x. And to move this onto the other side, I would have to subtract 2. Okay, so that's our first thing. We've got everything equal to 0. Now, usually we write our x term first. So I'm going to switch it to be 2/3 x plus y minus 2 equals 0. And now we need to get rid of this fraction, so I'm going to go through and multiply everything by 3. So that's going to give me 2x plus 3y minus 6 is equal to 0. And that's our second equation in general form. For question 3, we've got y equals 2x minus 3 over 5. Now again, our 2x is already positive, so we're going to move our y over to the right-hand side. So I'm going to end up with 0 equals 2x minus y minus 3/5. Now we don't want any fractions, so I'm going to multiply everything by 5. So I'm going to have 0 equals 10x minus 5y minus 3. And then we usually rewrite it to 10x minus 5y minus 3 is equal to 0. All right, so that's going from gradient intercept into general form. Let's have a look at an example going the other direction. So in this example, we're asked to rewrite 5x plus 2y minus 10 equals 0 into gradient intercept form. So that means that we want to make y the subject of our equation. So I'm just going to rewrite this as it is to start with. Now if we want to make, sorry, that should have been a y, not an x. If we want to make y the subject, I'm going to move my 5x and my 10 over to the right-hand side of the equation. So I'm going to have 2y equals minus 5x plus 10. And then to get the y on its own, I'm going to divide everything by 2. So I'm going to have y equals minus 5 over 2x plus 5. And that is in gradient intercept form. So when we're writing equations, it doesn't actually matter whether we write things in gradient intercept form or in general form because it all means the same thing. They represent the same straight line. It's just that one form is sometimes more appropriate or more useful in certain situations. So we need to be able to translate between the two things. Right, so that's having a look at the general form of a straight line.